Greetings, this is Paul talking about A Course in Miracles, and today's topic is about how the body is not real, the body is a dream. So the Course, one of the statements the Course makes is literally, the body is a dream. And it's pretty clear, I think, it should be, but isn't to some people, that in the Course, Jesus contrasts dreaming with waking. So when you're asleep, you have dreams. And you only have dreams when you're asleep. And when you're awake, you don't have dreams. And he also talks about how all your time is spent in dreaming, whereby your nighttime dreams and your daytime dreams only differ in their content. So as you go to sleep at night, you have dreams, and then you wake up in the morning and you're still having a dream, which means that this world is a dream and your body is a dream. It's just a little part of the dream that you've identified and associated yourself with. Now, what happens to your dream bodies when you wake up in the morning? They disappear, because they can only exist within the state of dreaming and sleeping. So like last night, I had a dream where I was helping some young child who was upset because he was an orphan and didn't have anybody to love him, and I was comforting him and talking to him about stuff. And then I woke up in the morning. Where is that child? Nowhere. It disappears, because by waking up, the state of your mind changes to where the clouds that were forming the dream figures dissipate and disappear and dissolve away, and the light of being awake shines them away. So the dream content and the characters and the place that I was in and the environment that I thought was there and the people around me, they all disappeared when I woke up, because they cannot persist at this level of awareness. This amount of wakefulness does not allow those dreams, those images, those illusions to continue. And yet Jesus is saying that when you wake up from those dreams at night, you wake up into what actually is still a dream, and you're still dreaming. I'm still dreaming right now, looking at you, looking at this world. This is still a dream. And the body is a dream. And the Course says about how the body is the central figure in dreaming. There is no dream without it. It depends entirely on the dream. And without it, there could be no dream, and nor does it exist without the dream. So it's intimately tied to the dream, the larger dream of this environment, and goes along with it and is made of dream stuff, just as this world is made of dream stuff. So then it should be kind of obvious that if this is dream, and this body is dream, and this environment is dream, and I'm the dreamer who must be bigger than just this body, because you'll notice in your nighttime dreams that you still dream of an environment, and you make up houses and buildings and oceans and things, and then within the dream you make a body, that you put yourself in the body, and then it doesn't even seem as though you are making the environment that you're in, even though you are. You use the body as a separation device to sort of disassociate yourself from the bigger dreaming activity that you're doing, that you're making up the buildings, you're making up the animals that you see, you're making up the forest and the ocean and everything else in the dream, but you only seem to look through the eyes of this little body speck that walks around in the dream as a hero, and you don't think that you're the one who's putting all of the other stuff there. Even though your mind is making it up, your mind is dreaming the buildings and the oceans. And the same is true of this world. Your body is merely just a small piece of the totality of what your mind is producing. It is putting the buildings there, it's putting the grass and the trees there, it's putting the cars and the houses there. But because you think I'm only in this little body and I'm isolated to this little body and therefore I couldn't possibly be making up this whole world, ha ha ha, it's a tremendous illusion of disassociation and denial to think that you're not the one making this world, that your projections are not producing the things that you perceive. And so you have to ask yourself, what would happen to this body that is a dream, made of a dream, inside a dream, only within the context of being asleep? What would happen to it if you woke up from dreaming, woke up to reality, which this dream is a denial of? What is going to happen to the body, at least the body? What's going to happen to the cars and the buildings around you? What's going to happen to your clothes? What's going to happen to your bank account and your house and the other people and their bodies? All of it, when you wake up, because it's your dream, all of the things in the dream stop happening because your mind stops dreaming. It stops making a body show up. It stops believing there's a house. It stops projecting a world. And so if you really are truly to wake up from dreaming, it has to mean that the body disappears and the world disappears, and that these two things do not carry over to reality. They do not exist in the real world, that you don't keep your body dream and take it with you into the light, and you wake up from dreaming and you're no longer asleep, and the dream is gone, vanished, no trace of it at all, no earth, no universe, no body. You don't take the body and keep it and somehow let it still continue in heaven, in reality. And it simply can't. It cannot go there. There's one analogy that I came across just recently. The holodeck on Star Trek. So if you haven't seen it, it's basically there's a big room in which there's a very powerful computer, and the computer can make appear anything as a three-dimensional environment that looks totally real, and you can go into it and interact with it, and it just seems like reality, and it's all housed within this holographic projecting room. And when you're outside the room, standing outside the door, you're sort of saying, okay, what kind of a dream do I want to go into? Let's see, computer, bring up 15th century medieval castles, and I'm going to go and I'm going to be dressed as a knight, and I'm going to go in there and encounter the Dark Ages or something. And then you go into the room, you go inside the context of the holographic projection dream, and you go in there and it seems real and stuff's happening and you seem to have a body and there's other bodies, blah, blah, blah. And then when you're done with your entertainment, you say, okay, computer, give me an exit, and you go out of it. You take yourself out of the dream, out of the fiction, and then you're outside of it and you switch it off. And there is no fantasy left. It just disappears. There's no more hologram, no more projection, no medieval castles showing up. They just don't exist anymore. And this is the same thing as with your dreaming. When you get out of dreaming and you've woken up from the environment that you made in the dream as fiction, there is no part of it that carries over. It was a plot on a couple episodes where things within the holographic dream room could never leave the holodeck and couldn't get outside of it, because that's how it works. You cannot take your body dream out of the dream because it requires dreaming in order to make it show up. It needs somebody to project it. It needs somebody to believe in it in order for it to show, to materialize. And if your mind is not believing in bodies, you no longer can make a body. In the Course, Jesus says, my body disappeared because I had no more illusions about it. And a little bit later on he says, the body cannot stay without illusions, and the last to be overcome is death. So, without illusions, the body cannot stay. And there's another nice quote that I just found that says something like, to be without a body is to be in your natural state. And so the body is in your mind. Your mind is bigger than your body. If your mind contains illusions, it contains a body, and the body shows up. It's not about you having separate illusions about the body. That's just further removed from realizing that you're making the body at all. And eventually it has to get to where you realize that I don't really have any illusions about the body. The body itself is an illusion. And if the body is in my mind and the body is a dream, I must be dreaming. If the body is made of illusions and I want to be free of illusions, I literally have to stop having a body. The body made of illusion, the only way the illusion can stay, and Jesus says the body cannot stay, and it cannot enter heaven, and you cannot take it with you, and you have to leave it behind. The only way that the body can appear to show up at all is if your mind believes in illusions being real, which means you are deceived and in denial and you're not awake. So there is confusion around this. There's confusion around it by some people because there's a whole bunch of people doing the course that see it differently than this. They don't. It all hinges around the belief that this universe is the only universe. God created this universe. There's nowhere beyond it to go to heaven. So everything to do with heaven and creation and God gets associated with this world. This world is a dream, but those people don't want to believe that it's a dream, because they want to believe God made it. So then they think God made the world, and the world is perfect and divine and holy, and therefore I shouldn't do anything to try to mess with it. All I should be doing is changing my view of it and my interpretations about it, change my perception of it, as if my perception of it is completely separate from the world itself. That's an old school definition of perception based in the ego. And then they'll think that if I change my view of the world, I'm going to see the world itself and keep looking at it and still see it, but see it as lovely and holy and forgiven and innocent and desirable, and therefore that the body isn't a dream because it's made by God, and then therefore I shouldn't be getting rid of the body, and therefore the whole topic of what is a dream gets twisted and mangled and turned into, well, dreams are just your interpretations of this world, and when you finish dreaming, when you finish having negative, false interpretations of the world, that means waking up, and now you wake up in this world, and then they think that that is awakening. And then they're still looking at the world through the body's eyes, looking at sin and believing it's real, thinking God made the world. There's a whole bunch of people that believe this, that they think this is A Course in Miracles and it's what it's teaching. And all of those adjustments and all of those interpretation twists and different ways of interpreting meanings of things has to happen as kind of a huge cascade of mistakes and consequences, one after the other, because of a false premise that this is the only universe and God created it. It messes up the whole Course. And for me, it is not what the Course says or means, and it's actually quite a safe interpretation to go there, because now I get to keep my car and my house, and I can keep my body and blah blah blah, and it's not very threatening, and I don't really have to have big thoughts about the world. There's so much less to question. It's a much easier, more palatable, acceptable, less threatening view of the Course in Miracles, because the other view of it, which Jesus clearly is saying is what he means, this universe is the world you made, and it's not real, and it doesn't really exist, and the body doesn't really exist. At no time does the body exist, and the world you see is an illusion of a world. God did not create it. Those all get reinterpreted as meaning something else by those people. But if Jesus were meaning that this world is a dream, and you woke up from your dream at night and you're still in a dream, and this world is still a dream, and it doesn't mean that I'm putting a dream on top of God's world, that Earth is somehow God's world and I'm just misperceiving it. But the world itself is in my mind. Jesus says you maintain the world in your mind with your thoughts. And when he says the world, he's talking about planet Earth, and he's not talking about my ego hallucinated version of the world. That's only false perception. Even true perception sees this world as an illusion. And the trouble is that view of the Course, that this world is a dream, the body is a dream, therefore this body is a dream, not dreams about the body. The body itself is made of dream stuff, doesn't exist outside of a dream. It is the central figure in dreaming. The dream, the entire environment of the dream depends on the body. There is no environment without it. And the body does not exist outside the dream. This whole world is a dream. That's a much, much bigger, more challenging, more difficult to accept truth. That this whole universe is fiction. The whole universe is an illusion. There isn't really a world. There isn't really a planet. That's a much bigger, more challenging, more ego undoing, threatening, difficult, unwilling to accept truth, that fewer people are willing to go there and take a look at that and have your mind blown by the sheer extent of the illusion of the separation, that we would be capable of making this world. But as Jesus says, the body cannot remain without illusions. So if my mind, which is making my body, wants to be free of illusions, it cannot keep having the body in it, because then I have illusions in my mind. If an illusion is recognized, must disappear. Jesus says his body disappeared because he had no more illusions about it. So if you can get that, the body is a dream, it has to imply it's part of the paradigm of seeing the Course in Miracles as a fucking massive scale teaching, not a nice little comfortable I'm in my body peering out at the world and having misperceptions kind of a teaching. It's I'm the frickin' size of the universe and I've dreamed up a planet sort of a teaching. So there's many people who believe that waking up will entail that you can be fully awake inside this world in a body. And that's only because they believe that the outer limits of reality is this universe and that there's nowhere beyond. So they would have to sort of stay here. But then you get all kinds of contradictions, because now if you're going to keep the body and pretend that you can be awake in the world, that you get to this state of lucid dreaming. The function of God's teachers is awareness of dreaming. You're aware that you're dreaming, but that doesn't mean that you have stopped dreaming. It also doesn't mean that you are awake, because only those who are awake do not dream, and only those who sleep dream. Awareness of dreaming does not mean you've stopped dreaming. It doesn't mean that you've woken up from dreaming. It's possible in this world to be aware of your participation in the making of the world. in a body, using the body for communication and healing. But if you stop there because you think that there's nothing beyond that, and you don't believe in the afterlife, and you don't think heaven is somewhere else, and you still think God made the world, and if it's true that there is another world, which the Course talks about extensively, then you cannot see two worlds. You cannot see both heaven and earth. The body's eyes cannot see reality. And there's this whole thing in the Course about things that are visible and invisible. Like the Holy Spirit is invisible to your body's eyes. You cannot see the Holy Spirit. Why can you not see the Holy Spirit? Because he is in another world. He can only be seen with Christ vision. And so he's invisible to the body. So if you're going to stay in a body, you're going to stay in a state where you cannot see the other world. You cannot see the Holy Spirit. Reality is still invisible to you if you stay in the body using the body to see. The body has to go. The body is not real. The body is a dream. And we have to distinguish that, because the entirety of the body, the flesh and bones and the brain and the organs are dreams, they can't be part of awakening. So there are some very advanced, long-term, experienced Course in Miracles students who've been doing this course for 30 or 40 years, who believe that this world is the only world, God created it, and it's not a dream. And they have adjusted everything the Course says to keep the world, keep the body, and to believe that you can be fully awake inside a dream. So apparently it doesn't seem to matter how long someone's been doing the Course, because if you can be that mistaken after 40 years, something is not clicking. But I must forgive these people. They are not sinners. They are just mistaken, in my opinion. In my opinion. Jesus says the body cannot see the Son of God. The body's eyes made to see will never see. To sense is not to know. You can't use your senses, the body senses, in order to detect heaven or reality or God's Son Christ. The body cannot experience heaven. Now here's something else that is often denied. Love cannot enter a body. God cannot enter a body, nor can you join him there. You who are love, the body cannot contain you who are love. Never was love in the world of dreams. So that has to mean the fullness of heaven, God, cannot exist inside a body. the light of God is so strong, it would make the body disappear. You cannot have God's love in a body or through a body, not in its fullest capacity. You can overlook the body, and with the mind can become aware of love and extend past the body and seem to shine within the world as if you're loving within the world. But the truth is that the love is taking you out of the world. Love is life. Love is creation. Creation does not happen in a dream. Creation cannot occur in a fantasy world, a world of bodies and forms. If love is creation, which it is, and it gives life, is what miracles are based on, giving life, but there is no life outside of heaven. So at some point you have to realize this entire world, this dream, this car, this body, these houses, the sky, the landscape, it is all not really there. And it's all made of death, because the opposite of life is death, and dreams are an attempt to oppose life and deny life. Dreams are what the denial is made of, the form that it takes. That's why the world was made as an attack on God. And in order to overcome death, you have to overcome the world, and you have to overcome the body, and you have to be without a body. That's how you get back to being pure spirit. And I think that there's maybe a big issue in the Course in Miracles community, where some people kind of have an issue about spirit, and they're kind of scared about the idea of there's a disembodied entity, or there's something that exists but doesn't have a body, or that there's angels, or the Holy Spirit, because none of them have physical bodies, and they must exist in a world where physical bodies don't exist. They exist according to the laws of God, not the laws of this world. They're supernatural. They break all the laws of this world. There's nothing the Holy Spirit cannot do. And so I think there's a real fear of the loss of this world, the loss of the body, the loss of things that you think are valuable. And the people who believe the world is real have unfortunately tried to do two things. They've tried to make the world real and keep it, and keep seeing it and keep looking at it with the body, while at the same time trying to become more loving without undoing the world, without seeing past it, without questioning whether it's real. And they try to have this compromise of, I'm going to have the world and I'm going to be loving. And it doesn't work like that, because as the love increases, the world decreases, because it's an illusion. The light shines away the darkness. As the light gets brighter, Jesus literally says in the Course, the body is darkness. The darkness gets shone away. Eternity will shine away the world. And I think that threatens a lot of people. It's difficult to accept that, because it's such a huge idea that everything you've ever known in the body, and all the history of mankind, and all the things that happen in the world don't exist. have no value. There's nothing in the world I want. The world holds nothing that I want. Beyond this world, there's a world that I want. These are very big, challenging ideas. And to think that there's like a realm that your body can't see ever, that's somewhere out there, that's this kind of idea of the traditional idea of heaven, with angels and light and beings and Christ and the Holy Spirit and God, that is behind this whole picture of crucifixion. Many Course people don't believe that. And so I don't know, there's quite a divide in the community, because some people have formed this much smaller, less threatening version of the Course. They haven't really had big enough thoughts. They don't believe in a realm that's beyond the world. They think this is the universe that God made, and they're quite convinced. But the body is a dream. The body is a dream. How could it be a dream if this world is real? So now there's reality everywhere, except here there's a dream. And that would have to mean all the buildings and stuff are not dreams. So they're real, but this isn't. That's reality and awakening. This is dreaming in the same space. Does it make any sense? See, the problem is that because it doesn't make sense, everyone's trying to make sense. And so the people that think that that doesn't make sense will now change the meaning of what the Course says to try to make sense, which now requires all kinds of sacrifices and compromises and adjustments to what Jesus says in order to make it fit and to create a kind of a cohesive picture. Just because a picture is cohesive does not mean it's valid. Jesus talks about that in the text. It doesn't mean it has validity. Just because it's consistent, just because it seems to make sense, just because it seems to fit, and just because there's hundreds of quotes that sound like they could be supporting it, does not mean it's true. And this is one of the problems with the Course, is that the truth can be so subtle and challenging that discernment is difficult to distinguish between the real truth and what it seems to be saying sometimes. So you basically have two options with the Course, how you want to interpret it. And it's all to do with two premises. The first premise is that this is the only universe and God created it. And the second premise is this is not the only universe. Heaven is elsewhere. It's a different universe that God created, and this is not the universe God created. You have to pick one or the other, because either God made the world or he didn't. So you've got this pivotal issue. You're going to fall into one of the two baskets. If he made the world, you're going to fall into the basket of the body's not a dream and I'm going to wake up in the world and stay here. If you're in the other basket, it's going to be that you're going to leave the body and return to heaven without one. And at some point, you're going to be deciding which one is true. But Jesus still gives some pretty outstanding facts. The body cannot exist without illusions. The body cannot stay. The body is a limit. But when you decide that God is the author of the universe, then it doesn't matter what the Course says, because you will read into it whatever you want to read into it to make it seem sensible. It is very easy to do that. It's easy to take pretty much any quote in the Course and see it in just a subtle enough way that it could seem to be maybe suggesting the thing that you really want the truth to be. That it's not really talking about the end of the body, it's really talking about an interpretation about the body. Or maybe dreams don't really mean dreams, they're actually creation. Or maybe holiness, the world being holy, maybe that means it really is real. You can bloody well read into whatever the fuck you want in the Course and use it to justify your position. There are only really two positions. God made the world or God didn't make the world. Either this is reality or it's an illusion. That's the only possibilities. Either I'm dreaming of this world and I'm dreaming of a body, or this world is real. And you've got to somehow sort out for yourself which one is true. How are you going to find out? How are you going to be convinced? And what does the Course say that supports it? And even if it does support it, is it really supporting it? Is it really honestly saying what you think it says and means? Willingness. In my opinion, the world is not reality. It's a dream. And when the dreaming stops, you cannot stay in the world. Because you cannot stay dreaming and you cannot keep making a body. And then you exist in spirit, where there are no forms, no bodies, no planets, no walls, no death. The living world of light, which God created. At nighttime, this world doesn't exactly look like a living world of light to me. Anyway, bye.